Aphelion is the new one by Don't Nod, the French developer I've been checking in with now and again over the years, who also brought us Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden, Vampire, and Remember Me and My Very Prominent Bottom. I'm broadly fond of them as a dev because they're creative in spirit and rarely go back to the same genre twice in either story or gameplay, although it must be said they've apparently hit upon a character dynamic they like, because the two leads in Aphelion are basically the two leads from Banishers again. Smarty Pants Black Lady Leader with slightly hard to place accent, hairy white British not quite as smart sidekick man, also with slightly hard to place accent. The game says he's British, but by the sound of it he must have grown up in the fucking French Quarter of Milton Keynes or something. Anyway, Aphelion is Don't Nod having a crack at good old-fashioned hard sci-fi about astronauts from a dying Earth coming to an alien world to find a new home for humanity and see if they can beat their fucking over-planet speed record. I suspect Don't Nod had trouble coming up with the title. What shall we call it? Oh, I don't know. I don't know either. Want a break for lunch? Yeah, I feel ya on that one. Wait a fucking minute! Continuing the Banishers comparison, Aphelion also opens with the two leads, Ariane and Thomas, in bed together, although in this case with an air of regret and awkwardness, probably because neither of them realised they were supposed to take their underpants off. Their spaceship then crashes on the frozen planet they were heading for, because maybe they should have been watching the rearview mirror instead of having a disappointing shag, and Ariane wakes up alone in the wreckage and sets out to explore the planet to find Thomas. Mysteriously, Thomas is never seen during the crash sequence, so I really thought there was going to be a Silent Hill 2-esque twist, where it turned out Ariane accidentally killed Thomas earlier with exploding blue balls and was blotting out the memory, but that got refuted pretty quick the first time control switches to Thomas on another part of the planet. Gameplay goes back and forth between the two chapter by chapter as they attempt to reunite, survive the hostile landscape, uncover some mysteries, complete their mission to save humanity, and maybe irrigate the Sahara and solve Fermat's last theorem while we're piling up the fucking workload. As for what gameplay Don't Nod are experimenting with this time, Aphelion will happily throw out the ever unhelpful action-adventure descriptor, and the tone is set right out of the gate when the first thing Ariane does is open a door to reveal a steep downhill slope that she immediately slides down on her bum, dodging the obstacles that appear with remarkably good timing. Oh, I see, I said to myself. It's not just a third-person action-adventure game, it's the third-person action-adventure game. The standard model, more or less. Hope you like following a perfectly linear path of yellow climbing ledges and getting immediately murdered if you attempt to go anywhere else. Sliding down slopes on her arse comes up quite a lot in Ariane's path, which is one thing if there's a floor collapse and she's forced into bum sliding against her will, quite another when she's happily leaping straight into a bum slide before even checking for alternatives. I'd have thought she'd be mindful of the essential life-preserving equipment strapped to her back that probably hasn't been rated for fucking winter sports. Thomas, meanwhile, has been injured and can't do any climbing because he has to at all times keep at least one hand pressed against his hurty tummy, so his gameplay is more about slowly walking around places solving the occasional extremely pedestrian puzzle. For example, there's a locked door with a 6-digit code lock, and in the room right next to it there's a very conspicuous birthday card on a corkboard. Yeah, that old fucking chestnut. The digital age's equivalent of pencil keyhole piece of paper. So we can add another task to these dudes' workload alongside saving humanity and finding each other, finding a fucking core gameplay mechanic to stick with. A small amount of skill challenge is added to the climbing by having you press a button to grab a ledge, but if you don't, you still grab the ledge, you just have to press a different button within a timer to avoid losing your grip, which as game mechanics go is about as organic and stimulating as a fucking pop-up window with two buttons reading, would you like to die now, yes or no? Besides that, you might have noticed that the Steam tags insist on calling Aphelion a stealth game, perhaps with a shrug and a mumble of, well, we gotta call it something. There are indeed bits where we get hunted by a big blind floating alien snake thing that's a sort of manifested middle finger of the planet itself trying to repel the invaders, which is about as on the nose as a plot element in a game with environmental themes gets. So every now and again we must indulge that ever-welcome trope, the forced stealth section, against a wibbly-wobbly visual effect of unclear physicality, often through confusing cave environments where I'm not even sure where I'm supposed to be stealthing to, and the wibbly-wobbly death snake doesn't seem to have any clearer notion. So excuse me while I decide upon what asshole dismissive simile to deploy here. How do we feel about, like, navigating a pitch-black bedroom trying to avoid waking a sleeping cat that's lying on top of a Roomba? And perhaps I'll follow that up with a classic subverted simile. It's about as fun as a very not fun thing. There's something very iffy about Aphelion. Aphelion? In a way that makes it hard for me to overlook little annoyances. I hate how the game forces us to wait for every animation and dialogue line to finish before we can interact with anything else. So I'm in a lab staring at a very obvious computer with a post-it note on the monitor saying the answers to all of your questions, waiting to press the fucking contextual button prompt that hasn't lit up yet because my character hasn't finished pontificating on how astonishing it is to have found a post-it note thriving in the wild. Also, did you invest a lot of money in facial animation recently, Don't Nod? Because you suddenly seem weirdly obsessed with sticking the camera right in characters' faces as they react with surprise or consternation at something, and their eyes and mouth muscles elaborately twitch like stroke victims trying to walk across Lego. In the rankings of AA developers, I would classify Don't Nod as more of an average Alan than an amazing Andrew, but I also wouldn't lump them in with the anus Adrians, and that's what makes Aphelion such a disappointing Daniel. It's getting some very stern notes at the bottom of its homework, written in very emphatic plastic red biro. Not your best work, must try harder, see me. In a nutshell, it's 10 hours of utterly bog-standard Ghost Train Ride gameplay in which the main characters fail their way across a few pretty environments, achieving very little, chasing a couple of intrigues and plot threads that ultimately don't really go anywhere. But having said all that, there's an agreeable message at the heart of this narrative. Let's be kind to the planet, it says. Let's be responsible stewards of our corner of the universe, because if we don't, we might have to go look for new planets and end up having to play through a slightly boring video game. Message received. Now I just need to figure out which bin to sort it into.